Mabuhay, Kamustika, welcome. How are you? This is Bob from Love Beyond the Sea. Best ways to deal with anger in marriage to a Filipina. For a few videos, I'm going to be talking about anger because I want to have videos that are helpful to people who are dating and want to get married to a Filipina or anyone else. And I just think that your ability to control your temper is a big thing in a marriage. And there's so many situations, even with someone you love, that are very tempting to potentially divide you. So it's only fair that I make some videos here about anger, and hope you will subscribe to Love Beyond the Sea for all kinds of videos. Go to lvbts.com. I've got the videos up there. Mr. E designed that site. All the social media for Love Beyond the Sea is on there, as well as podcasts called Casting Beyond the Sea. We want to reach men who are honest and serious about wanting a relationship with a Filipina. The best way to resolve inappropriate expressions of anger in marriage is to first get to the root of the anger problem. Now, I'm going to be using some links that I'll put there in the top of the description box, and what I talk about in this 4-part series will come from there, so I don't necessarily have a note for which ones come from where, but it all comes from there. Have you ever been hurt or emotionally wounded at some earlier stage of life? Have you ever been the victim of verbal, mental, emotional, sexual, or physical abuse? Or perhaps not allowed to express your feelings, ideas, or opinions? Often, the root cause of anger problems is a cover-up excuse me, for hurt and pain. A cover-up for hurt and pain. It serves us as a protection against being vulnerable and hurt again. In reviewing the following list of root causes of anger, do you see any that might apply to you? So, could be this. There's like 11 things here. People have repeatedly let you down. Trauma or loss. Impulsivity and lack of self-restraint. Feelings of entitlement. History of being repeatedly treated unfairly or unjustly. Neglect or abandonment as a child. Unforgiveness toward others and resentful thoughts and feelings. Unmet expectations. That's the one that kind of sticks out for me. Unmet expectations. Fear or anxiety is another one. Depression or bipolar disorder, and blaming others and or unwillingness to accept responsibility. These can be root causes of anger. So here's from one of the links in the description box. How about how to handle situations where you're angry? You can use I statement feeling terms, but don't use you. My example would be, I feel resentful to my wife that you haven't gone to the doctor yet to check that out, my love. I want to understand if I can help you set up an appointment, because I feel relieved that you are taking precautions because I love you so much and I don't want to live without you. That would be better than saying, come on, what's taking you so long? You got to make that appointment. You got this great health care in America. Gotta do that. So use I statement feeling terms, but don't use you. 2, count to 10 before speaking. This will help you choose your words more carefully and not say something you will regret. If you're able to, go for a walk or a drive. And then they say if you're in an airplane, the count to 10 method will have to do. Number 3, implement what they call I thou. Catch the other's feelings, trying to feel them yourself. That's good advice. Surprisingly, this makes the experience of those feelings actually diminish. This is powerful because it is really the only way a person can impact another's experience with feelings of anger in relationships. This one actually resonates with me. There have been times I realized that it would be helpful if I tried to understand things from my wife's perspective. This usually happens after I have a chance to calm down and think about it some. Have you ever said when you were upset, I wish you would try to see things from my perspective? Or I wish you knew what this was like? Recently, we had a doozy of a dilemma as far as I'm concerned. My wife has, at that time, talked to me about going to a different work shift than she had been on, reversing the hours from 6 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. to 6 p.m. to 6:30 a.m. That's a big change. I was already feeling physically and mentally run down. Probably had a cough too back then due to a medical situation, but time was of the essence. We needed to do something. Basically, she desired this shift, and I did not. We both had strong feelings about it. We both had our reasons to feel the way we did. Now, my first reaction when I learned how serious this was to her, that she wanted to make this shift change, was to be, guess what, angry. I decided that I wouldn't fight her on this, even though I had made my case of why I thought it was a terrible idea. I didn't side with her because I'm a big softy. I reiterated to her that her well-being was my top desire, and I have not put restrictions on what her well-being involved. In this case, I started out accentuating my well-being, and there's nothing wrong with that. I didn't hide from my displeasure, and I think initially I was calm about expressing it. She even agreed with me at one point. But I have been aware of why this was important to her, well aware. Every time she tried to talk to me again about why she feels the need to do this, I countered with why I thought it would not be good for me, and that this was looking like one of those few times when I simply could not allow it for the good of the relationship. And I could make a good case for it, but we weren't in court. I kept thinking about myself, how this wasn't good for me. Now I never let go of her opinion and her feelings. Part of me wanted to be open to this for her sake. The issue for me was that we would not see each other as much. You know how much I like spending time with my amazing Isa. Since her work schedule was alternating 3 days one week, 4 days the next, it wasn't like I was almost never going to be with her. That was also an important consideration. I also asked myself if this really would be a disaster waiting to happen. I tend to be the type of person that, there's a word for it, it's catastrophizes, which is a way of saying I tend to think the worst could happen in a big situation like this. I could just see us growing apart. I'm not getting younger, and I love every minute with my dream Filipina. Like I often tell her, I have very strong feelings for you. I felt like it would be that way for the rest of my life, even though I knew that wasn't true. And maybe 6 to 8 years at that time, we might retire in the Philippines. So at the time, I'm thinking, what a mess. Now, thankfully, I tend to be analytical, and while my wife wasn't around, I did two things. One was to remind myself of the 5 main ways I could see this change from my wife's perspective. There are some real pluses for her. She had heard how I felt about it personally. The other thing I did was to remind myself of my commitment to her and my desire to want to live up to that. I reminded myself how I had already done that in certain ways, that I considered some pretty big sacrifices for her. In fact, I have a video called My Filipina's Wife's Needs Come First, and you'll find the explanation for why in that video. My Filipina Wife's Needs Come First. I can't go into detail here, but I believe this move would be good for my wife in a handful of ways. It really hasn't been difficult to understand. I was very concerned about me, myself. And again, that's okay, but we were in a stalemate. I had to decide what to do. I made the decision to let her do this once we were both heard out completely. Sometimes someone simply has to make a sacrifice. Often I tell my wife we need to make decisions based on what's best for us as a couple, not for us as individuals, if we can. And that goes both ways. Once this was out of the way, she said that if after a certain period of time it isn't working, like she didn't like the yo-yoing of ours, she would switch back. If it isn't what she was expecting, she will respect me immensely. That I put her above myself and let her see for herself. I firmly believe that God rewards things like this, and for those who will see this and exclaim that I am just a big simp, I have made it clear in our marriage that I am the one who is responsible before God to mandate or to allow what is in the best interest of our marriage. That doesn't mean I'm always going to be right, but I need to be respected for the one that, has to give account for that. That means I do not get to do what is best for me. It has been said that boys do what they want to do, but men do what they have to do. Now, number 4, practice active listening. Repeat back what you heard in order to confirm you understood and affirm your partner's feelings. This is good. Shows them that you're paying attention. 5, connect physically. They say here in this link, for one, hug, and they say do have sex. They note for many women this may involve a bit of fake it till you make it. Guys, we can't do that. If the situation is in the process of being resolved, but isn't there yet. For most men, sex actually serves to alleviate resentment because it's a form of connection in its own right. That's true. Even though you both might not be in the same emotional place during the resolution process, connecting physically can help. In fact, some marriage counselors, they say, suggest that if the marriage is on a downswing, have sex at least once a day. I'm not sure that's going to happen, but why not try to find out? The scheduled connection might put things in a different light and aid in resolving resentment. What do you think about that? Number 6, meet on a bridge. And what they're saying here, this can be metaphorical and also realistic. In order to channel resentment and empathy, the understanding bridge will need to be gapped. Integrate the idea that we both have to be on this bridge together, and we really can't see what our partner is feeling until we get out on the bridge. The more steps you take, the more you see the middle hump of the bridge where you both come together in understanding the other. In order to actualize this place of mutual understanding, one idea is to literally go to a bridge nearby, have a picnic, a snack, and talk things out. And number 7 here, engage in daily empathy actions. And they say empathy is not necessarily the default feeling and needs some retraining to become par for the course. Routine empathy can be actualized by checking in with our partners about how they're feeling, looking them in the eye, and regularly giving the benefit of the doubt. Once empathy becomes intrinsic behavior, resentment often becomes a thing of the past. I always say, ask them, what are you thinking, feeling, believing, and experiencing? Now, in the upcoming video, I'm going to analyze the poor anger test score that I mentioned earlier. That may be one, if you've got other things to do that you want to miss, and that's okay if you don't want to watch that one. I will understand, but I will reveal my test scores and what I can learn from it and how I can be a better husband. We'll do that probably in the next video right here on Love Beyond the Sea.